Hi, everyone. Welcome to the December 2022 Ask the Expert interview series. Today, I'm happy to have Lynn Harrelson with me. She is a pharmacist here in Louisville, and just wanted to talk with her today about National Influenza Vaccination Week, which was this month. And we all know that it's important to get our flu shots and try to stay healthy during the winter months. So just wanted to talk with her. She is a geriatric integrative clinical pharmacist. So Lynn, I will let you tell us a little bit more about what that means and what you do.
Well, it's not all that complicated. Basically, the focus of my practice is taking care of patients who are older or who are sicker. Um, I am unlike other pharmacists. I do not dispense medicines. I deal primarily with a patient's response to medicines, primarily with the older patients. Integrative means I try to integrate into my reviews and working with my patients, not only prescription medicines, but non-prescription supplements, all the different things that we do, including other products that individuals just may eat. And I look at how each individual patient handles that and how we can improve the response to that. Now, a lot of people are going to say that's really new. When in reality, it is, but it isn't. When Medicare was started in 1965, soon after that, they integrated a pharmacist into the nursing home services where we reviewed the medicines on a monthly basis. And while I was in college, I studied that. My first employment was doing that. And in the nursing facilities, I had all of the lab tests, all the lists and things that the patients were getting. I worked with the nursing staff and the doctors, made sure it was checked or given in the best possible way. I looked at responses because the nursing staff and the doctors noted the responses. So I had how a patient clinically responded to the medicines in a controlled environment. And I still made recommendations for improvement. I saw a need to do that for patients at home to provide what I called a preemptive strike to keep people healthy at home. This was a program that I started in the 70s, and it was the first healthy at home service that's been provided. It is very, very innovative. And like I say, I do it in their home, but some patients I visit remotely like we're doing. And it really keeps them healthy. I've been able to have great success in providing care for my patients. It's different. It's very different.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. So just wanted to touch base on the importance of the flu vaccine and kind of get your opinion. So especially for older and elderly individuals, but really it's good for all of us. So just go a little deeper into that for us, if you don't mind.
A couple of months ago, someone asked me, should I go and get my flu vaccine? And I said, absolutely yes. I said, run, do not walk, run. In today's environment, we just need to be a lot more proactive. Aggressive is a word that I'll use in taking care of ourselves. We need to do everything that we can do to stay healthy. And that's what the influenza vaccine does, as does all of the other vaccines. But it helps us stay healthy. It helps us to stay healthy at home, independent at home. It helps us stay home and enjoy the pictures we have on our wall. It keeps others healthy, not only those that live in your house, but those that visit your home, your friends and your family. So you may not get the flu, but you may carry it and share it with others and cause problems. And we saw that with COVID. One of the most important things I think that we need to consider doing the flu is to decrease the burden, not only on our healthcare system, but our family, our caregivers, our loved ones, the healthcare system, particularly in the hospitals. They're just overwhelmed. The community resources, the physician's office, the nurses' offices, and the pharmacies, they're just overwhelmed with things, and it gets worse when we get sick, and we do. The biggest problem we have is that our children go to school, they get the vaccine, and they bring it home. I remember I grew up in an environment where we used to have measles parties, and to get rid of the measles. I don't think that that's going to, I, I don't see that as an approach now. We didn't have the vaccine back then. We've got things to do, what I call that preemptive strike. We just need to do that to keep the health and welfare of our people better shape, but also the the mental anguish that a lot of people go through when they become sick and need help can really be detrimental to your health, general health. So I think that's why it's important.
If someone gets the flu vaccine and then actually does come down with the flu, is the vaccine able to help symptoms be reduced, or does that have any effect?
Well, just like with a lot of other medicines that we take, it's not an all or none 100%, because each of us are so different. We have so many different genes and approaches, things that are going on in our system. We're all going to respond differently. That being said, I do believe the flu vaccine does reduce the response that you have to the flu. Some people can just look at a bug or a virus and just get deathly sick. That is an individual response. And I would kind of take that as a warning. If you normally get sick, you may not have the same response to the vaccine that someone, even your half sister or a sister or a brother, someone else in your family might have. But I really do believe that it makes the flu less problematic. You may not be able to skip it all along, but it'll make your life better. It really will. And sometimes, particularly for us that are older, just minimizing the response, the sickness, the inflammation, all the stuff that goes along with the flu really helps us keep our strength and our well-being in better shape than just going full-blown flu. It's just hard. It's just hard. Definitely, it helps. It's not an all or none situation.
What you've seen in your patients and in your work, how has the flu season been so far this year and in the early parts of it?
Well, I'll just say, I think the flu has been problematic. I see a lot more people who report if someone in their family or themselves who've had the flu. I think it is a whole lot more problematic. I think what's happening is the flu's layered on top of the COVID-19 and the RSV. And then it also comes as we get older. The flu has always been more problematic for individuals over 60. It's just that because our systems through life become a little bit weaker, we get worn out, or our systems become worn out over time. And that's what the flu vaccine does. It helps try to build it up. But we've seen annually where when individuals get together, we have a flu. For years, we've had the post-Thanksgiving flu blimp, Thanksgiving, Christmas blimp. And a lot of it depends on getting the vaccine and having the time for the body to build up what it needs. But I just think this year in particular, it's a lot more problematic because of the COVID-19 and the RSV. And the other thing is we're just going through so much fatigue from COVID-19. We don't want to do anything to manage stuff. It's like we've opened up the gates and everybody's out running it wild in the fields again. But, we need to kind of, go back in the corral and do some things that are more appropriate for us to stay healthy.
You mentioned COVID-19. Are flu symptoms similar to COVID-19 symptoms? Are you seeing a lot of that having similar symptoms, or are there varying symptoms in this new variant?
Lots of times with the COVID-19, it affects your chest and your breathing, and, you have the temperature, some of the same things you might have with the flu. What I've seen with the flu historically over the years has been the nausea, the diarrhea, loose stools, that type of thing, the GI upset. I think anytime you have problems breathing, shortness of breath, tightness of breath, that thing, you should consider it's either COVID-19 or it could be the flu. You don't know. And but a lot of the things, if you don't feel right, one of the best things, you've got the in-home COVID test. You can use that. And if that comes up negative, I would suspect the flu, but I'd be on the phone to your healthcare provider asking directions. And it's very specific to you as to your medical conditions, the medicine you're taking, maybe how long you've had your symptomology, and you can track how you feel. That is actually really great to be able to track it and to be able to share it with your healthcare provider, because it lets them know where you might be and help ask questions and do different things differently. So I think this year, if you have the flu with the potential for COVID-19, it's going to be worse. So we just need to get the flu shots. Yep.
Mm-hmm. On the vaccines, are there any common side effects with the flu vaccines? I know COVID vaccines, sometimes there were side effects, but is the flu shot similar?
It can be. The biggest problem with the flu vaccine is the individual response, allergic response. They call it an anaphylactic shock, where you don't breathe, and you basically your body decides to shut everything down, and you just have a shortness of breath. That is seen with the flu vaccine and continues to be seen with the flu vaccine. It's rare, but it does happen. And then there's the Guillain-Barré syndrome, and that's a long, complicated thing. But usually, if you're prone to that, your healthcare providers know that. You should know that and have that available in your advice that you give your healthcare providers. I think the other issue is that the flu vaccine is egg. There's cautionary with people who have allergies to eggs, and that's not the situation with the COVID-19 components. So they're a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more mechanical, and they're not as natural as the flu vaccine. And so they each have their pluses and they each have their minuses.
Recommend getting them both at the same time or spacing them out?
Well, because of the allergies, potential allergies, and my experience in long-term care facilities, where even in the 70s, we would have our vaccine months. We would celebrate our vaccination week. We would have that usually in October and November. We would try to have that in November before Thanksgiving as much as we could. But we did not, to our patients, many of whom were over 60, we did not vaccinate them with multiple vaccines at one time. And the reason for that is you could have two separate reactions piled on top of one another and make that reaction severely worse. I don't like doing that. I know some health practitioners do it, offer it. And the biggest reason they do is because they know that Jennifer may not come back for her second vaccine. And, it's like, I think we saw it on being promoted on television and radio, come and get all of this all at one time. I don't like that. I like when I help my patients manage the medicines, I see where a lot of healthcare providers will recommend to get them off this, get them off that, get off all of the medicines or make all these changes at one time. I like doing one at a time, so we know how a patient's responding to that individual component, regardless, however we managed it or changed it. So we know what we're dealing with. If you go in and you manage a bucket, you don't know what it is that caused the problem. Getting COVID-19 and the flu vaccine, you can have a response. Well, was it egg allergy or was it something else? You don't know. And that can affect you for the rest of your life. If the responses are bad, it can also affect you. So indulge yourself, get your vaccine, the flu vaccine or the COVID follow-up booster, that type of thing. Give yourself some time in between. And the time in between also is going to be dependent on your personal health situation.
What are your just easy recommendations or best recommendations to just try to avoid the flu and COVID this holiday season as we're approaching that?
Okay, what I'm going to say kind of goes back to the last question that was asked. And the one thing I want to highly reinforce to individuals who are listening is after you've had your vaccine, whether it's COVID-19 or the flu vaccine or any of the others that are on the list, do not roll up your sleeves or roll down your sleeves, put your coat on and run out the door. Stay where you've had your vaccine for at least 15 to 30 minutes. It's not really pretty when the person jumps back in the car and has a problem while they're driving their car home. And I know that we did things out the car window that was an emergency, but now it's not that important, but you can hang around. That is protecting yourself. And that's what you're talking about, is protecting yourself. So basically what I tell my patients, and I'll tell everyone that I speak to, is we need to baby ourselves the same way our mothers tried to baby us. Wash your hands, cover your cough, stay away from others if you don't feel right. And if people say they don't feel right, keep your distance, stay away. You want to eat good. You want to try to sleep well. And one of the biggest things that I see as problematic is attitude. Our mental attitude will cause our condition, whatever medical condition we have, to be worse, or we perceive it to be worse if we worry about it. We have a lot of resources there available to us. We can use it, but just keep an attitude. If you go through and say, I can't handle this, I can't handle this, guess what? You can't handle it. Know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. That being said, everybody should have a sheet that's called in case of an emergency sheet. If I'm going to suggest they can go to my website. I've got what I call health ice on the list, but you can find them in other places in case of emergency. It lists your name, who your contacts are, your emergency contacts, some of your medical conditions. It lists your medicines, your allergies, those types of things. I tell patients to keep that. This is part of my babying them. I tell them to keep it in their car, to keep a copy at the house, make sure that a trusted loved one has a copy of it so they know. If you have a medical surrogate, someone who's going to help you in the absence of others, make sure they have it, but you want to keep it updated. And I like to use this time of year to maybe just to kind of relook and reflect. As part of my resolution process, I look at that, I update it, I make sure that it's accurate and complete. And then I look at that and think, what can I do better next year? Okay. And one of the things is to make sure my team has this information. I make sure that the information that I have on my medical record is consistent with what I have here. A lot of people will say, oh, I've got it on my phone. All you need to do is ask the people in Mayfield where we had the tornadoes. What did they do? They did not have their medical list if this is where they had it. And you can say that about the snows that we're having now, different things. So just make sure that you have something on paper and realize that when you put it on paper, you're making that commitment to understand, and that'll help keep the spirits up. And that's what we need to try to do this part of the season, but also throughout the year. I think that would be really good. You want to make sure you have a healthcare team. And when I say a healthcare team, it's your loved ones, your children, caregivers, that type of thing. It's your doctors, your nurses, but make sure you include your pharmacist, because one of the things when I started my care at my nursing homes right out of college, what was really interesting was, what was real interesting, you had to be careful with the buttons. What was really interesting was I was working with patients who had physicians, one physician that took care of them at home, in the hospital, in the nursing home. And the medicines were very simplistic. They were not as chemically complex as they are now. Now we see a multitude of physicians, different types of practitioners, and the medicines are very, very chemically complex. And we all need to work with pharmacists because of all of the chemicals, not only what we take, but what we breathe. There was one more thing that I thought of about keeping healthy that I failed to mention that I think is very important, particularly this time of year. One is you want to keep your house clean, the dust and things like that. We're going to be spending more time in the house, but if you don't have a schedule to replace the air conditioner filters on, or your heating, your HCA, whatever that is, that code, the heating and air conditioning system, make sure that you have a plan for that. Because if someone has been in your home and been sick, the bugs have been filtered through there, and they probably will stay alive, but all it takes is really just one little bug to get in the right environment, and it can wreak havoc. That's why washing your hands is really good, covering your mouth. And the other thing I failed to mention is if you have reservations where you're going, don't worry about it. Put your mask on, take care of yourself. No one else can take care of yourself like you can. And the vaccine is great, but the little things that we do. And the other thing I failed to mention was when you wash your hands, you need to sing happy birthday to yourself. And I like to tell my patients who are much younger, if they wash their hands and sing happy birthday, it'll help them see another one. And the other thing I left off I forgot my props, is you can get a spray bottle of alcohol. Okay. And it'll dry. It won't be greasy. A lot of people have complaints about the gel and things. You put this on and it dries much quicker. And you can also use that, particularly if you're coughing into your hand. Next thing you need to do is get your alcohol out and wipe that off. And then wipe off your alcohol container, because if you picked it up with your hand, you coughed in, guess what? So just be careful with that. So, we just need to do everything that we can. I would much rather overcompensate than being laid up with the cough, the cold, the flu, or COVID.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for giving your expert opinion on how to stay healthy during the holiday season. And just give you one last chance if there's anything else you wanted to share with us before we go today.
One of the things that I talk with friends, family, and patients is your health is your personal choice. You can choose to protect this most precious gift that we have of life by taking, once we're here on this ground, everything that we should do. If we don't walk out in the middle of the street unless we look both ways. Many of us used to put our seatbelt on in the car before we got off. They had to put a rule on it, but we still did that. There's a lot of things that are available for us to take care of ourselves in order to have a better life. And I strongly feel that the flu vaccine is one of them. So I want to see every line vaccinated and their families. Thank you, Jennifer, for giving me the opportunity to share.
Thank you for being on with us today, and we hope everyone has enjoyed our December 2022 Ask the Expert interview with Lynn Harrelson. And we hope to see you all in the new year.